Let's walk through using the CSV Importer tool. So I've already got the CSV Importer configured in Oasis. I've gone through that process. I've got the button installed into my QuickBase table. Now, if I didn't have a button, I could go over to Oasis, My Plugins. You can find the CSV plugin. You can click Install Plugin button right here. That's going to allow you to install this button into QuickBase if you don't have it already. So let's walk through using this tool. So I want to show you my spreadsheet or my CSV that I want to import into this QuickBase application. I've got a very simple spreadsheet. I've got a start date, end date, rate, which I'm not going to import. It's actually not part of my configuration for the CSV, but I just put this in here for demo purposes to show you if there's certain columns you don't want to import. It's okay. You can leave them out of the configuration within Oasis. So when I walked through the configuration process, I added in all of these columns, but I left out rate. So I want to import start date, end date, task name, effort, and details. In my QuickBase app, I've got start date, end date, task name, effort, and details. And I've got my button here to launch the tool. So let's go ahead and launch the tool. Okay, I've got my tool here. I've got the logo that I set during the configuration process. I also set a dark red background for my company colors here. I want to go ahead and import this document into QuickBase. So one thing to note when you're working with the CSV documents is when you're done with your document here, make sure when you save, so when I go File, Save As, make sure it's set to CSV, UTF-8, comma, delimited. You need a .csv file to drag into this UI. So it's not going to work with Excel documents or different file extensions. Make sure that you're using a .csv file. Okay, so I've got my file here, and I'm going to go ahead and find it in my Explorer. So I've got project tasks that I'm going to import here. I'm going to drag it in here. And it's going to go ahead and process that file. And it's going to show us the first row of that file. So I can open up my Excel document here, and I can see, okay, I can check. I've got this first row in the document saying that start date is 3/24. I can see the start date right here, 3/24. The end date, 5/24. End date right here, 5/24. Task name is flooring. Effort 75, details, demo merge field. So it looks like everything looks good in my Excel document, matches what's in here. Now, if you found something that didn't match, you could go back over to Oasis, the My Plugins area. You go down and click the three dots here, edit the configuration, and it allows you to go back through this configuration process. So right here at the top, it's got an alert. It's telling me, okay, the first time you went through this configuration, when you set up the plugin, you used this connection. So this is important. You want to make sure that you use the same connection when you go back through to edit the configuration. Unless you really do need to change the connection. And in that case, you can change the connection here, but you're going to have to go through the whole configuration process again on the next screen. I don't want to have to do that. My connection hasn't changed, so I'm going to use this same connection, Ryan Hawes Test App. Click Use this connection. And now I can come in here and I can update any of the configurations that I need to. So in here, I could update any of the columns to make sure that they're all mapping correctly to my QuickBase fields. So here, they're mapping correctly, so I'm going to go ahead and click Save. It's going to go through the import process. It says 5 records were imported. Let's go check out my QuickBase app here. I'm going to refresh. And I should see a few more records in my QuickBase application once it loads. Looks good. I've got 5 new rows in here. Looks like it matches the data in my spreadsheet. And yeah, so everything looks good there. So that's an import process without a merge field. Right now in my configuration, I don't have a merge field. So what does a merge field allow us to do? It allows us to uniquely identify each row in our spreadsheet. So let me add a new column here. I'm going to call this ID. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This ID uniquely identifies these tasks. So if I import something it's going to say, okay, this ID is the identifier for this task. So instead of adding new records in QuickBase, go find me the project task in QuickBase with an ID of 1 and update it with the information that's in here. So right now, if I didn't have a merge field, every time I import, it's just going to add new records in QuickBase. So if I imported this 5 times without the ID column in here, it's going to add however many records there are in the spreadsheet 5 different times for each import. But if I wanted to utilize a merge field, I can say, okay, make sure when I import that you're updating where the ID matches the ID in QuickBase. So let's go through an example of this so it makes more sense. So I've gone ahead and I've put the ID field in my spreadsheet. I need to create the field in QuickBase though. I don't have an ID field. So let me go over to my settings and new. Type in ID. Let's do numeric. Okay, so I've got the ID field. There's one more thing I have to change in here. I have to make sure in order to use a merge field in QuickBase, it's got to be unique. So must be unique, meaning we can't repeat it in this table because QuickBase wouldn't know which record to update if you repeat the merge field ID. Okay, so now we've got this ID column here. Notice that none of these are filled in right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the spreadsheet again. I've got my ID column with the IDs in it. I'm going to click Save. Now, my configuration right now isn't set up to use a merge field, but I want to utilize a merge field, so I'm going to go back over to Oasis, and I'm going to walk through how you get here again. So go to My Plugins, find the CSV plugin, edit the configuration. I want to make sure I use the same connection that's listed up here. Otherwise, I'm going to have to remap all of the fields. So use this connection. Okay, and then I want to scroll down to the second section here, and it's got the table, my project task table. Now it's asking, what's the merge field I want to use? So I want to use the ID field that I just created in QuickBase as my merge field. Now I've got it set up here. I've also got to do the mapping in the columns down here. So you can see my columns down here. I have the start date, the end date, the task name. I've got all of that information in here. I want to add one more, and the name in the spreadsheet. Once again, whenever I set this up, I want to make sure I copy the exact text that's in the spreadsheet or in the CSV for this column here, because the tool relies on the header to identify which column maps with which field in QuickBase. Now it's saying, okay, I need the FID of this unique ID in QuickBase. I need the FID of this unique field in QuickBase. So I need to find that. I could do it in one of two ways. I could go over to QuickBase. I could find it in my field settings, which in this instance is probably quicker. So if I went over here to QuickBase, I would go to Settings, back to my fields, and in here I can see, okay, the ID, I've got 18. That's the unique identifier for this field in QuickBase. The other way I could do this is in the configuration in here. At the top of the screen, there's a click to find QuickBase IDs. So in here, I could say, what application am I searching in? Well, I'm searching in the Ryan Hawes training application. That's my QuickBase app. What table? Project tasks. That's the table. What field am I interested in? Well, I'm interested in finding the ID field. As soon as I click that field, it's going to copy the ID to my clipboard. So I can easily go up here and just click Control+V on my keyboard, and it's going to paste in the 18. Now, if you don't have Control-V or a copy feature, you're struggling with that, down here it even tells you the field ID is 18 and the field type is numeric. So I could just look down here and say 18, make sure I put 18 up here. Once again, I could go over to QuickBase. I could verify my ID field is field ID 18. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. All right, so we've successfully updated our configuration to use a merge field now. Let's go back to our QuickBase app. I'm going to close this extra tab. And let's go ahead and delete these just so it's a little more clear when we do the import. So I'm going to delete those 5 records that are in here. And then let's launch the UI again. And we're going to import our project tasks. And we can see here, okay, now we've got the ID. So it's grabbed the first row from the spreadsheet, showing us all the information from it. Looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and save. It's going to process that. It's going to add those records to QuickBase. So if I go back to QuickBase and refresh once again, I should see the extra rows from the import. And we should see that the IDs are filled in now. So now this ID field is filled in. So let's jump back over to my spreadsheet now. And let's say certain information changed, right, for specific tasks. So the task with field ID 1, let's say the rate, or not the rate, let's see the effort, let's say we bump that up to something crazy, 550. And then the details, revising import with new information. And then let's change something else. Let's change this HVAC row down here. Let's set the effort to, let's do like 1500, just so it really stands out. I'm going to click Save. So I've updated two rows. I've updated this row, and I've updated this row. And I've gone ahead and saved it. Let's go through the import process again and see what we come away with. So right now I've got the ones that we already imported all the way up through field ID 5. I'm going to go ahead and click Launch the Importer again. And let's grab that file, drag it in here. All right, all the information looks good to me. Save it. And you can see 2 records were updated, but none were added. So if I go to QuickBase, refresh, I can see none of the records. No, there are no new records from my last import, but I can see here the HVAC row has been updated to 1500, and my flooring row has been updated to 550 for the effort, and it shows the newly revised details in here. So it didn't add any records, but it updated the 2 that changed from the spreadsheet. So that's the kind of core key concepts of merge field, how you can use it to update rows or records in your QuickBase app instead of adding new ones. So anytime you want to edit your configuration, you can always come back to QuickBase, My Plugins, click Edit Configuration, walk through that process again, and that's editing or importing your CSV from beginning to end.